Alrighty. Welcome to the OMFL's First Take show here inside the OMFL with yours truly, myself, BigHurt, and I've got Maniac here with me to co-host today. With further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Maniac. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. Got final game of the season out of the way. Got my ticket punched for the playoffs, and looking forward to this great show. Though we got some interesting topics, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I also got my final Week 18 game in. So I've got the playoff brackets or inside playoff picture here with inside the game pulled up. With some of the images, you're not going to be able to see some of the teams, but the playoffs are kind of shaping up. I know on Press Pass Live the other day, Nate and Trey did a good job of kind of doing some predictions and then kind of going over some awards and whatnot. But things are starting to fall into place. We've had a couple interesting stories that have taken place in the last 24 hours that I just want to cover really quickly before we dive into our topics. There's only been about 4 or 5 games that have been played so far, and as you can see, as I'm pulling this up here, the Texans and the Condors played last night. The Texans and Roger did pull out a 30-21 victory over Pancake there, and then Trey actually had to play the computer as Deep has been working some overtime, it sounds like. And Trey lost to the computer 37-31. Walter, the quarterback, just went off with Justin Jefferson, threw for almost 500 yards, no picks, 4 touchdowns, and got his first win, a big upset that really impacts the playoffs here as the Lions fall 37-31. Myself, I played Priest. I lost 37-20. Priest's defense is something else. He was 0 for 7 passing in the first half, got his first completion midway third quarter, and had 2 kickoff returns in the first half that kept him in the game. And then his defense just, did their thing. And then the Bears had the crucial second turnover late in the final drive that pretty much sealed this game. And then just trying to, do everything I possibly can. He got a turnover and he got a field goal there. So the score was 27-20 late. Looks a little worse, but did fall to the Packers, which now has a 3-way tie in the NFC North at 10-7 between the Bears, the Packers, and the Lions. I think I'm going to hold on as the division win based on our records in division and conference play, and then Trey will be second. Priest is at third. And then Maniac and Nate played the Falcons-Saints game. Bijan Robinson had a pretty crazy game and has 3 touchdowns to pull the Falcons out for their 12th win, securing that top wildcard spot. Just 1 game shy behind Kevin right now. Well, I should say 1.5 games because Kevin still has to play this week. But 31-20 win over the Saints. As you can see, there's still quite a few games to be played. A big one, Cowboys and Commanders, is still out there. And then D-Money is trying to fight his way in, depending on some things that happen. Cincy and the Ravens still have to play. Lost and Kobe still have to play. That could be a playoff big impacting game. Bill and the Dolphins, Bills and Dolphins with Bill and Massimo. And then Denver and the Bengals. And then, like I said, Bucks with Kevin plays the Panthers. So lots of games left to be played, some interesting things. Anything that you want to chime in on that, Maniac?
Yeah, there was some definitely some surprises, and I think another surprise is that the 49ers are kind of on the outside looking in at the playoffs right now, so that's very intriguing. They took the chance with the sim, and he lost it. I'm not sure exactly what all the reason was for the sim for that game, but that was a big impact that impacted the playoffs and a lot of big games. This last week seems like there was a couple that were kind of on the fringe, trying to get in the playoffs that was kind of relying upon some games this week, and so yeah, it's the wild and wacky OMFL, that's for sure. So
Yeah, I mean it's actually kind of fun because like right now, you know, we got some guys that have thought that they were on the outs. Nate was trying to close in, and then here comes the Commanders sneaking in. Priest is making a statement, and so this is what the football is all about. Is kind of those last couple of weeks, people fighting and scratching and trying to grab that final spot. And like I said, the AFC is pretty sewn up, but the NFC, we have a last spot or two's kind of been up for grabs. And like I said, I think the biggest thing for me is the Lions losing the computer game kind of stands out. I would have never dreamt that Trey would have lost to the computer. And that threw a complete wrench as my team has kind of melted down here the last couple of weeks. But yeah, let's get into these topics. As you said, we have a fun lineup today. We're going to keep things with the theme of Halloween. So as you notice something, let's keep the theme with Halloween here. And we're going to start off with the first topic being Dr. Jack or Mr. Hyde. What teams are kind of beast mode, are on fire, or what teams have completely melted? And as I'm kind of looking at the standings here and just sorting by recent streaks, I think that's the first thing that we can kind of look at. The Bengals actually are on a 5-game winning streak. And as the Bengals have won 5 in a row, they're sitting at 13-2-1. That's pretty impressive. And then you have the Bucks, the Falcons, the Commanders, and the Packers all on a 3-game win streak right now. Mind you, the Bucks and the Commanders could make that 4 as they still have their Week 18 game played. And then the Texans, the Bills, and the Dolphins finished with a 2-game win streak. And the Bills and the Dolphins play each other, so one of those is going to be on a 3-game win streak to finish out the season. And then on the flip side of things, you got the bad side of the streaks. The Broncos, the Giants, and the Jags also have to play, but they're on a 3-game losing streak going into Week 18. The Cowboys, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Bears, the Raiders, and the Saints finished the season here with a 2-game losing streak. But yet, the only 2 that have don't have a game in Week 18 because they just have already played has been the Bears and the Saints. The Raiders, Ravens, Steelers, and Cowboys potentially could end that streak or get a third game to add to that losing streak. Any other teams that you think that have kind of stood out as a season that have been either a Dr. Jack Beast on Fire team or like a Mr. Hyde, the team that was just kind of melted or, hiding out in a cave? What teams kind of stand out for you?
well, I mean, kind of the crazy thing is like we've both got kind of the same list. I'll kind of touch on maybe like the let me pull up the record here. I was looking at the week 1 stats and kind of seeing like who was like starting out super fast, super good, and then all of a sudden, like you look at the end of the season and they're really not there. One team I think that we all kind of thought looking into the season that wouldn't have had a struggle was probably for me. I thought the Patriots were going to be a team that were going to make some noise. Lost Sniper has been a really good player. I believe he actually still lost the first week, if I remember looking at this right. But no, he actually won.
He won against the Eagles and then lost 3 in a row.
Yeah,
granted,
so
those games were the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Cowboys, but yes.
Yeah, so that was one team that I thought, going into the season that was looking solid. Another one would be, let's see, the Browns. I thought was another team that had a lot of potential, but then he makes a change at quarterback, gets rid of Watson, puts him in free agency because he has a younger quarterback. and wants to go that route, but he's really raw. And the first game of the week, or season, he plays his buddy Denbrew really close. It looks like he's got things figured out with the new quarterback. And things happen with sliders and different things that updates and stuff that make teams play differently. A lot of times, you just can't explain it as Madden. But then he's struggled all season. He has had a couple of wow games come out, and think like where was this all season? But the Cleveland Browns are another team that I really think that were on tab to be a Mr. Hyde team, a beast team, but then they turn out to be a Dr. Jackal, type of team that just who's going to show up one week. One week he plays like Mr. Hyde, and then next week he plays like Dr. Jekyll. But out of the list that we kind of both had and stuff, the Bengals, I think right now coming into the final part of the season on a 5-game winning streak is big. Going into the playoffs, a lot of momentum. And he is definitely the top of the beast teams going in. That Mr. Hyde team. And then, of course, you have the Bucks. The Bucks are loaded. It seems like at every position they're loaded, especially wide receiver. And then he goes and picks up off the street the running back that was for the team in real life, but then they let him go. But he goes back out and he picks him up, and he's had nothing short of a stellar season with him. I mean, I'm trying to get this on here. Fournette.
Yeah, I think
Fournette.
Leonard Fournette, I think he's had probably, I want to say well over 1,000 yards, but I want to say he's in the neighborhood of 1,400 yards or something like that.
Yeah, if I'm looking right, he's in top 5 in the league. That first game of the season, he had 14 carries, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he got off to a strong start.
Currently he's 16 games played for 1,571 yards, averaging 5.34 yards per carry with 13 touchdowns. That's according to Neon Sports, which I think is pretty accurate because it says 16 games. So he's got his final game in Week 18 here.
Yeah, they are pretty accurate, and he's been beastly with him. I mean, he's probably been one of the hardest running backs for my team to bring down. It seems like he always has 100 yards plus a game every time I've played him. Yep. And so, you look at those situations like that, that was a smart move for him to pick him back up. The Commanders, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they were struggling middle of the season, and now all of a sudden they've made a push and made a run, and now they're sitting pretty with a playoff spot. And
mind you, his final 3 games, the Commanders, were the Jets, the Niners, and the Cowboys. And he's 2-0 going into Week 18 against the Cowboys right now. If he wins against the Cowboys, this might go down as the craziest 3-game win streak entering the playoffs. That is unheard of to win against these 3 teams. Bang, bang, bang. Kudos to Bird there.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't help but have confidence in if you walk into those situations and you take out. If he takes out the Cowboys, that's taking out the number 1 team in the AFC, the number 1 team in the NFC, and then also the guy.
And the Niners game, the Niner game does have an asterisk next to it because it was a sim, but still, even though his sim team upset the Niners, that's impressive.
That is impressive. So that lets you know he's built a solid team, or he had a solid team, but he's built around them enough through the season that they're actually competing really well, and that's kind of scary. That's the persona of a Mr. Hyde team coming into the playoffs. And on the opposite end of that, which I was going to say, the Bills and the Dolphins, with a +2, those 2 teams have played solid all season. They've been true to their beast nature. The Texans, though, the last 2 weeks, 2-0. He's found his game. So, congrats to Roger. I love seeing that. The Texans, if he can build on that, build on the offseason, what could be of the Texans team this next season 107. And then on the other end of that, the Dr. Jekyll's, the one that never got to their potential, the Broncos, Giants, Jags. They've ended the season with a -3 or 0-3 record on the last 3 games. Those teams, if you looked at especially the top two, the Broncos and the Giants, they've got exceptional owners, and you kind of expected them to be in the midst of things, but they're not. They just couldn't get things figured out that meant the best for their team. But they'll be back. Surprising here is the Cowboys and Steelers have lost 2 in a row, and the Bears. Those are all really surprising. I know the Ravens with Nip. Sometimes he gets taken away with his job and stuff, and then the Saints. He had kind of had an up and down season. He was kind of the epitome of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character, because a couple weeks he would be mediocre, or kind of the meek Dr. Jekyll, and then all of a sudden, like, he'd burst onto the scene the next couple weeks and be Mr. Hyde and be tearing up teams and making plays and and winning games and stuff, and then it would fall back to the I would think kind of like this.
I think a lot of that has to like speak to volumes to like he really was like back and forth in his quarterback play. Like one game he was playing Derek Carr, the next minute he's playing Malik Willis. And it's like Malik Willis has obviously some, as Nate would say, some sexy traits. His throw power is there. He's a little athletic, so he can move out of the pocket. But then it's like the key things, like the medium accuracy, the short accuracy, the deep accuracy. Like I think his medium accuracy is like a 73. Throw under pressure is not great. So then it's like the things that are like the meat and potatoes that you look for when it comes to like a quarterback, he's missing that. And it's not just like it, just slightly off. I mean, it's a project for sure. Derek Carr has that, but then he's missing kind of that sexy trait, like he's not really like a franchise quarterback. So I think Nate, had that in his head, and it's like, okay, well, let me go get someone that I could build into that. And this game, as I've experienced week by week with Justin Fields missing money throws that if guys are wide open. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like playing with a Malik Willis. And Nate's got a lot of talent on the offensive side, a good offensive line. He's got Kamara. Taysom Hill played well at running back at times. Kendra Miller, the rookie, comes in, played well. He's got Shaheed and Sears and Olave and Mike Thomas, and like he's got weapons there. But again, it comes back to quarterback play. And so I think when he played well, Derek Carr was in the game and making throws and doing things. And then he had some moments where Derek Carr, was Derek Carr and not, an elite quarterback. And then he was turning, to Malik Willis, and Malik Willis, at times maybe made a throw, but consistency factor was just a big issue.
Yeah, and this Madden is already very inconsistent as it is, and then you throw those factors in, it makes it tough. And I'm really kudos to him for getting to the position where he was at, where he actually was battling for a playoff spot.
Absolutely.
But that nothing, and I've experienced this firsthand. Nothing is more, I guess, more threatening to you, like how you feel about your team when you don't have confidence in your quarterback and you're bouncing back and forth. And
and you're also playing in a division where Kevin's on top of his game, you are on top of your game, and Black Cats is no pushover. I think he's kind of figuring out young quarterback. Miles Sanders, is that the type of running back he wants? Young receiver outside of Adam Thielen, like the offensive line isn't the greatest. Defense, like he's got pieces there. I think that defense is something that could be really good. But again, those 3 teams that you got to play twice. That's 6 games. Like, that's not an easy, but there's a lot of divisions in the OMFL that are like that. But Nate's dealing with that with inconsistency on quarterback play. It just makes it really tough.
Yeah, and I think his plan is I don't know if he's going to stick with Willis, but if he is, I feel like he's going to have to at least look at putting 2 seasons worth of stuff into Willis before he gets to be a really serviceable quarterback. But I kind of feel like he's probably going to go and attack this draft and go for a quarterback. Hopefully everything that works out for him. If Nate gets a top tier quarterback that's able to be that top tier quarterback within a season, we're going to have to watch out because Nate's going to be something to do with.
As long as he can maintain the roster, because there are some guys like Cameron Jordan's getting up there, Tyrann Mathieu, Kamara, like how does that all play out? But Nate does a pretty good job in the past, like with managing his cap, his roster. So
yeah, he's no stranger. He's no stranger to managing his team, and he pretty much he knows what he's going to do with that team. I think the Achilles heel for Nate is the quarterback situation. I just feel like he doesn't,
and he said that from day one. So I mean, it's not like this is an issue where we didn't see this coming. Like he said from the get go, like he was looking for a quarterback, was trying to trade for a quarterback, and then he just wasn't going to overpay. But again, like that's hard part is that's kind of how the league is in real life and in Madden as well. It's like that position is so vital. That's why the contracts are so outrageous with the quarterback play, because that's the direction of what your team's going to head in. If you've got a quarterback that can play, you're in a good place. If you've got a quarterback that's shaky, like the Bears, like with myself, like one week I'm like, oh, Justin Fields, great, and then the next week it's like, dude, you missed like 5 throws that are just key throws. Like that's been my season, and so I think a lot of your success is obviously your defensive play. You've got Bijan, but then going and getting Parker Colt with a steady quarterback that can make those throws when you need it, feed off the run game, that it's played success. And you look at a lot of the teams like Kevin, he's got Ryder that's played well. Massimo with the Dolphins, he's got Hitchens that's played well. So like if you've got a good quarterback, again, but there's that's such a hard position because the contracts become so outrageous, and then like nobody wants to let go of a quarterback that could be a franchise quarterback. Even myself, I'm kind of like, do I let go of Fields? Oh, that'd be crazy to do that. But then again, it's like he hasn't really done what I need him to do to get over that hump or that hill. Like I feel like I'm just in a valley between 2 mountains right now with him, and so it'll be interesting as we go into that off season.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be interesting, and so, but for my take, I think the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I would have to say that the Saints kind of embodied that the whole season, but I'm looking forward to see what he does.
I think another team. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think one other team we have to mention is the Condors. Like they started off so crazy, like good, that it was like, who is this team? Where are they? Like, where are they coming from? Right? He loses week 1 to the Jags in a 3-game 3-point loss, but then he rattles off like a stretch of wins, and it's like, okay, beats Little Cochin, beats Nate, and it's like, okay, the Condors are here, right? Then he hits a stretch where he lost Sniper, lost to Kevin, bounces back against the Titans, loses to the Bengals, loses to the Steelers, loses to the Falcons, and then beat the Raiders, and then loses to the Texans. I think the second half of that stretch against some playoff teams kind of put him back into reality a little bit, where he competed in a lot of those games, but the quarterback play, he was using Minshew. He was using the rookie Richardson because he traded Parker Colt. And then he went and got Russell Wilson. So it's like, he's been like up and down, I don't know who's going to start type of deal all year, and that's been like kind of how his season's gone, right? Because like he was, you know, 1 minute I'm on the high and I'm doing well, and the next minute I'm struggling. Jonathan Taylor's carried this team and had a great season. So I'm interested to see what happens in the playoffs with Pancake, because if he can really embody what he did in those series of wins and run the ball, play good defense, figure out his quarterback play, he might surprise somebody. But I think at the end of the day, like he's going to run into one of these elite AFC teams, whether it's the Steelers, the Jets, you know, Bill, Massimo, and he's going to struggle because he just offensively, I don't think he can keep up, and those defenses are, um, you know, just as good, if not better, than his defense. And so, but what it's going to come down to is turnovers. If he can run the ball effective with Jonathan Taylor and limit their offensive time for his opponents on the field, and make a few plays, he might surprise somebody.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the Condors, and in fact, he even sent me a message one day. He's like, I'm not so sure I did the right thing trading away Parker Colt, and uh, but
And you're like, oh, I think you did a great job trading.
yeah, I'm all like, no, it was the best thing you could have ever done. No, but no, I think Richardson will eventually turn out to be a great quarterback, and it didn't help that he kind of dealt with some injuries at some key positions here late in the
Yes,
season,
for sure.
and you know that's just something that we're all going to have to.
I think
Um,
that's one thing this Madden does, is it really makes you rely on some depth, because we've had some injuries, and some teams have had multiple injuries that have just like make it 1 week really tough because you've got multiple guys out. But then we've seen some key guys go down, and like in previous Maddens, we didn't have that, right? And so this Madden, as much as it's been a challenge and it's been kind of a scratch your head, like, it's frustrating, it also is throwing a wrench in and kind of made it more realistic, to where some of these key guys, the more you play them and they get, you know, worn down through a game, they're more susceptible to an injury or practice injuries, you know, fatigue wise. It's made it to where depth is a key, right? And so
right.
that has been fun to see. Stressful if you're a team dealing with some injuries, but it's been fun to see.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, it's kind of a new wrinkle that you know guys never had to think twice about having two solid quarterbacks. Most guys would get the guy that they wanted, and then the backups could be 50 overall quarterback, or the
Right.
wide receiver. They'd have their top two or three wide receivers, and never really felt like that they were going to get hurt, except for the occasional every once in a while type of injury that would happen. And now, since injuries are actually a part of the franchise, to where it actually makes you think twice whether or not do I want to keep these two decent quarterbacks, and that's the thought process for me myself. I did go out and get Parker Colt, and I thought about trying to trade my import guy that I brought in from Madden 23, and he's not super sexy, but he was also serviceable. I actually played 4 or 5 games in the season with him, and he won 4 of the 5 games. He was a serviceable quarterback, so I talked myself into keeping him, and then also the quarterback I got from the Steelers for
Kenny
trading
Pickett, yeah.
him Ritter. I started to let him go, but I was like, you know what, with these injuries happening, I might be the only team that actually has three quarterbacks capable of actually playing a game. So so I decided to keep them, and so
If
that's
you've
the
got
type
the
of
cap,
things.
why not, right?
Yeah, and for me, those three guys are actually, they probably don't all together don't hardly cost a thing, and especially those two, the import and then Pickett, they're barely counting against the cap. So,
Right.
but that's just a decision that I had to make, and you're seeing other guys now that possibly didn't think that through. They're going like, "Ooh, maybe I should have thought about that."
Yeah, and I think a lot of these decisions, like you're just talking about, are going to be decisions that people make coming into this offseason. Looking at yours, Perk Colts on a 3-year deals left, or 3 years left, and McKinley has 3 years left. Kenny Pickett is up this year with a 1 year on his final year. So, like, we'll see. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. One thing I actually wanted, as I was going through, I thought it was interesting in looking at Bill's schedule. Bill has won just about every game he is expected to win. His only losses this year, the Jets, the Bengals by 1 point, and the Jets was a 10-point loss. So week 1, 10-point loss to the Jets. Week 9, 1 point to the Bengals. Week 11, 14-point loss to the Jets. Week 15, 16-point loss to the Cowboys. And that's it. Every other game he's won. And so I think Bill has really shown like a lot of consistency. The Cowboys, the Jets, and the Bengals are 3 top teams in the league year to year, especially in season 106. They've played well. We just talked about how the Bengals won on a run. The Cowboys have been a force, and the Jets have been a force. They're the 2 top teams in the AFC and NFC. So, like, Bill is impressive from a consistency standpoint, and I think that's something to speak on. You also mentioned one other team that I was looking at. Oh, the Texans. The Texans started off with a 6-game losing streak to start the year, and then bounced back, and now are 5-12. So really, since then, they're I think they're 5-12, if that makes sense. So yeah, they're about 500. I mean, Roger, obviously, we always talk about it. Roger, if he's plugged in, he's a fun guy, great dude. But he's been playing 500 ball really since his bye week. His first 6 weeks, brutal. He went 0-6, but bounced back, and he's had losses to the Bucks, the Bengals, the Jags, the Jets, the Titans, and the Browns. So I mean, not like horrible losses either. And he's playing with the young team, young quarterback, figuring some things out. I'm interested to see what he does coming into the offseason. Then the last team that I wanted to talk about was you said the Patriots, and I was noticing something there. Lost Sniper had some losses that I wouldn't say like he would maybe be favored in, and he could win these games. But week 2, week 3, and week 4, Dolphins, Jets, and Cowboys, he loses. But he won against the Eagles, wins against the Saints and the Raiders, lost to the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Commanders. Okay, bounces back, beats the Condors, the Giants, the Chargers, then loses to the Steelers, Chiefs, beats the Broncos, loses to the Bills. Outside of the playoff teams, Lost Sniper's been like great. It's just those playoff teams that he struggled in. And I think his roster isn't horrible, but it's not like it's not elite either, right? And so I think at the end of the day, if he can figure out his roster and build out to how he wants it, this is a team that he was competing against Cincy back in I think week 14 is what it was, and I was watching that game and I'm like, holy smokes! Like, if he figures things out, that's a tough division already. Add a 4th team in there. This is a team that I'm excited about coming for the coming seasons of season 107, 8, 9, this cycle. So I'm interested to see what Lost does in this offseason. Let's get into the next topic just for time's sake. The next topic, keeping the theme of Halloween, we're going to go trick or treat. And who are the biggest possible free agents that can make a difference this offseason? Again, a lot of these guys are guys that obviously could be re-signed because they're on their final 1-year deal. But I went through the list and kind of made sure to point out, and I'm just going to rattle off some names, and then you're going to just pick out maybe like 3 to 5 guys that you think would be just massive pickups, if they didn't get re-signed. Because obviously it's hard to say, like, we don't know what teams are going to do in this re-sign period. And maybe they try and re-sign them, and then the player chooses to, test the free agency, But, starting alphabetically, I can't talk here, but alphabetically, the Bears, we have Tyson Cash, we have Darnell Mooney, Byron Jones, that could hit free agency. I'm looking to re-sign, especially Cash for sure. And then Mooney has been a big ad for me. Byron Jones is probably going to hit the free agency, but he's still a serviceable corner. I'm not sure yet. My rookie corner has kind of played well, so I'm going to see how I feel about this. Also managing the cap. I do only have like 19.8 mil, and I've got to build that debt. So I've got to manage this cap really well. The Bengals, only Tyler Boyd really is the main guy. I mean, maybe Irv Smith, but looking at guys that are like 80 and above, or key guys that are 75 to 80 is on my list. But Tyler Boyd is the one. Could be a solid number 2 slot receiver, depending on how long of a deal he wants. But that's for them. The Bills, we have OBJ, Gabe Davis, and Damian Harris. If somebody's looking for a receiver, we've got Gabe Davis that could be a serviceable young receiver. I anticipate him to try and re-sign him. We have Odell Beckham, obviously good, number 1, 2 guy. He is up there in age, but still serviceable. And then Damian Harris could be a nice little power back for somebody. Again, we'll see what Bill does there. The Broncos, we have Kareem Hunt. Again, he's got Javonte Williams. Not sure what he's going to do. Kareem Hunt could be like a Leonard Fournette for somebody this season, or how Leonard Fournette played this season. Kareem Hunt could be that for somebody next season. The Browns don't really have anybody. I think they've moved on with Deshaun Watson, so they're don't have any major big contracts. They got a couple guys in the high 70s, but again, nothing that stands out. Like, Mercedes Lewis is an older tight end, but that's about the only one. The Bucks, this is a team that I anticipate to keep, but Isaiah Simmons goes and gets him. He's on his final year. Fournette, does he re-sign him? Ryan Neal, a corner. And then he's also got Levante David and Devin White, both middle linebackers, and then Mike Evans, which could be a nice number 1 receiver for somebody. Still, in that early 30s range. How much does it digress? How much does it cost? But Levante David and Devin White. David's kind of the vet, 33-year-old linebacker, but he's a superstar. And then Devin White, young, athletic. Anticipate him to probably hold on to Devin White, but we'll see how that plays out. And Antoine Winfield, again, another player I anticipate him to hold on to. The Cardinals have a lot of money, $51 million, but he's got Hollywood Brown. I anticipate him to probably keep him, as Jokers likes to pass the ball. That's a guy that can be a threat. The Chargers, this is a cap hell right now. He's only got $9 million. He's got 15 in cap penalty. He's got some guys that are going to stand out. Akeem Hicks, Eckler, Michael Davis, another corner, Kenneth Murray Jr., Gerald Everett. He had Mac. He has, I think, like 6 guys, if I remember right, that are going to be making like 30 plus mil. 30 plus mil. Mac, Bosa, Allen, Herbert, and then he got rid of Mike Williams. So yeah, I mean, that's like, and then obviously Derwin James, J.C. Jackson. Some guys that got big contracts. So that is a challenge for him. And they're with Pepper for the Chargers. So I expect a couple of those guys to hit the free agency. The Chiefs, Chris Jones. And then if you need a punter, not game-changing, but obviously a young punter, Tommy Townsend's a good punter. Can flip the field for you. But Chris Jones is the big one. The Commanders, Montez Sweat, Fuller, the cornerback. Antonio Gibson, the running back, because he's got the young running back in Brian Robinson, not Bijan, but Brian Robinson Jr. But Antonio Gibson, does he keep him? Does he let him go? Hasn't been really using him. But then Curtis Samuel, another athletic, speedy receiver. He does have McLaurin, Dotson, and John Ross, and some other guys, and Diami Brown. So I don't know how much depth he wants there and how much Curtis Samuel is going to cost. So that might be something he has to manage, but he could be a receiver for somebody. Condors, Taylor Lewan, Grover Stewart, defensive tackle, Kenny Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., and Jonathan Taylor. Taylor, obviously, in the running for MVP. I'd expect him to try and keep him, but he's only got $13.7 million to work with right now in cap space going in. So we'll see how this plays out and how he manages that cap. The Cowboys, a loaded roster, only $70,000 in cap space. He's got Malik Hooker. He's got Javon Curse, Tyler Beard as a center, and Tyrone Smith, a couple linemen, couple safeties. Pollard was re-signed. So, I mean, interesting to see. Obviously, Pollard being the guy and how Dwayne runs the ball. No surprise there. But like I said, some game-changing guys at safety that could be big additions for somebody. And a couple linemen. And then the Dolphins, Christian Watkins, Seiler, another defensive tackle, Robert Hunt, Connor Williams, couple offensive linemen, and Deshaun Elliott. The Eagles, we have Miles Jack, Terrell Edmonds, Rashad Penny, Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, and Quaz Watkins. The surprising thing is he has $60 million in cap space. I don't understand how this roster, but I think by the mid-cycle when Jalen Hurts was re-signed, but who am I thinking of? Devontae Smith, some of these guys, that he's got to re-sign. But in real life, the Eagles have done a pretty good job managing their cap. So that's surprising. We'll see what the Eagles do. He has a pretty good roster already. The Falcons. Does he maintain Calais Campbell and Cordell Patterson? Calais Campbell being pretty up there in age, but he is the anchor of that D-line. And the Falcons have had a pretty good defensive season so far. So we'll see what he does there. The Niners, he's got that solid backup quarterback play in Kirk Cousins. Bosa and Gibson's the safety. So we'll see. Bosa could be a game-changing. Depends. He's only got $2.6 million in cap. So does Bosa fit into those plans for the future? The Giants, we have Sterling Shepard, Barkley, Leonard Williams, McKinney at safety, Odori Jackson. He does have a little bit of cap space to work with, so it'll be interesting. The Jags, Calvin Ridley, Josh Allen. I'm going to kind of move along the Jets here. Chuck Clark, McCole Hardman, Whitehead, Amos, Dalvin Cook, Mekhi Becton, Devin Bush. A team that's gone 15-1. He does have almost $25 million in cap space. It'll be interesting. I think Aaron Rodgers, has got a pretty big cap coming up. So we'll see how he manages that and what incentives they use too. If they do like a void out the cap hit and then drop like somebody or something as well. The Packers. Oh, sorry, I skipped the Lions. Jonah Jackson, Mosley the corner, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think Gardner-Johnson's really the big one. Mosley's a nice corner for depth purposes. Jonah Jackson, decent lineman. We'll see what he does there. The Packers, Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage, A.J. Dillon, John Runyon, and then the import Cameron Walker. A couple guys I think priests are vital to his team and how he plays right now. So it'll be interesting. He does have almost $60 million in cap, which is huge for him. He's got a pretty young team. The Panthers, Deion Jones, DJ Chark Jr., and then Luvu, the outside linebacker. I think the big one there is Deion Jones, pretty athletic linebacker. Could be game-changing for somebody, but I anticipate him to probably try and hold on to him. We were talking about the Patriots. Zeke, Uche, the outside linebacker, Gesicki, Hunter Henry, both tight ends, Trent Brown, an offensive lineman. This will be interesting to see what he does there. Raiders, Rashaan Evans, Josh Jacobs could be a big piece. And then Marcus Peters, a corner. The Rams, Higbee, Derrick Henry, Cam Akers, Jordan Fuller, Deshaun Watson, Isaiah Rodgers Sr., which was his free agent pickup at the start of the season, and John Johnson III. He does have some cap space, but mind you, Derrick Henry, Cam Akers, Deshaun Watson, all big names, and all could be literally like massive contracts. The Ravens, we've got Clowney, Rocky Sin, Pierce, the defensive tackle, Patrick Queen, Dobbins, Matabuke, and Kevin Zeiler. Some big boys, some of the hogs up front on both sides of the ball, plus Clowney and edge guy, Patrick Queen, and then Dobbins, the running back. He's only got 14.6. I expect a few of these guys to be available in the free agency. The Saints. Here's the big one. We talked about his season. I think it's interesting. He's got $20.5 million. The big free agent is Cameron Jordan. Cameron Jordan is really his only pass rush that he has, and I know Nate's been struggling with the pass rush and has made comments about it on the stream. Cameron Jordan at 34. What does the contract look like? But this is the only guy that really is capable of putting a pass rush and could be a really beastly defensive tackle in that nickel package or something. So we'll see what he does there with Cameron Jordan. And as we're almost to the end, the Seahawks, Bobby Wagner and Wasu, outside linebacker. Fant, usable tight end here from Madden. Jordan Brooks, a solid linebacker. Steelers, this team is like dynamite, and the only guy that he's going to be even probably losing, and I don't even think he was cute. I think he was trying to trade this guy all season, was Levi Wallace. So the Steelers are in good shape. The Texans, Shaquille Griffin, Denzel Perryman, Singletary, Dalton Schultz, and Desmond King. Not anybody that's really big, but some depth guys. The Titans, Casey Hayward, Rodney Hudson, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Azeez Al-Shaair, Tannehill, Christian Fulton, Tierra Tart. Interesting names, nothing super big. I'm interested to see how Truth uses that roster. Tannehill, obviously, big guy to come off the books. He's got some big money in his D lineman there. And then the last team is the Vikings. Jalen Reagor, a nice speedy receiver, TJ Hawkinson, Davenport, edge guy, KJ Osborne, Ezra Cleveland, and Danielle Hunter. Of that, who stands out to be big names, or as our theme, trick or treat? Who would you pick if they hit the free agency that you would just be like, wow, how did they land here?
Well, I know you said like 4 or 5. I couldn't just make up the list of only 4 or 5. But I'll try to go through as fast. And I've got 9. The ones I see is the Bears, Cash, just a dynamic player, X Factor, the whole 9 yards. I know he hasn't had a great season because of all what Madden, seems to not get a hold of, but still, I think he's a dynamic player, and if you let him go from the Bears, somebody's going to pick him up like super fast, and I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't like Priest or the Lions and Trey. Bucks, Mike Evans, super big wide receiver, gets the contested pass catches. He is not going to burn you with his speed, but he's also going to just get off the line and always be open. Seem like Chiefs, Chris Jones. I don't know if he's going to have the cap space to even keep him, so this guy's probably going to be more likely open, and look for the Cardinals to make a big push to get him in the offseason. Commanders with Sweat, and that's another big time edge rusher. I know it's, again, with Madden, hadn't seen a whole lot, but even if he's getting pressure, if he's getting to the edge because of his quickness to stop the outside runs, still a big-time player that can be someone that could change the total outcome of somebody else's team. Cowboys, Tyron Smith, definitely probably not going to be able to keep him, and so he's going to be available and could possibly be an anchor to the offensive line that one of these younger teams is looking for. The Jets, McCole Hardeman, just because of his pure speed, if he doesn't stay on the Jets, someone's going to pick him up. Someone's going to make some big plays with this guy, just like Kobe has with the Jets. The Packers, Gary, I just can't see him letting him go, but if he does That's going to be a huge free agent for guys to fight over. The Ravens, Patrick Queen, another big time player in the middle of the field, the middle linebacker, can change the outcome of games. He can take over games in the middle. Definitely a great user type linebacker. And then my last one is the Vikings, Darnell Hunter. Uh, just again, we've seen it's tough for pass rush, but in the right hands, this guy could probably be absolutely dominating, and would be surprising to see him out in free agency.
Yeah, definitely a solid list there. I think the only ones that I would throw out there that maybe could change things would be a TJ Hawkinson as a tight end. I think if he hits the free agency, Cam Akers could be a long-term running back for somebody. If he chooses to hold on Derrick Henry, I don't see him keeping Henry and Akers. That's a lot of money in a running back room. And then the Bucks, I really like the list that he has. If any of those guys, Isaiah Simmons, Lavonte David, Mike Evans, Devin White, any of those, Antoine Winfield Jr., any of those guys hit the free agency. Like those are guys that are interesting guys, and would be solid guys to be picked up. But this list is interesting. Like I said, I don't know, not all of these guys are going to hit, but it's interesting to see who are guys that each team or each owner has plans for the future long term wise. Let's jump into that next segment here, and the next one we call it Frankenstein or Skeleton. If you're gonna revamp and rebuild from absolute just ground up, are we starting over from scratch, or are you gonna take what the team has and build with that, and it's just kind of we're missing a few pieces or key injuries type of deal. So Frankenstein or Skeleton? Frankenstein, you build with what you have. Skeleton, we're actually taking it down to the absolute bare bones skeleton roster and revamping the entire thing. And then we're only talking about the 4 wins or less teams. So the Titans, the Rams, the Jags, the Ravens, the Giants, the Broncos, and the Vikings. I'm going to jump in and just throw out kind of a rapid fire, short little sentence or two behind each if you prefer. But starting with you, just pick Frankenstein or Skeleton. Titans.
Frankenstein.
So you're saying they're going to build with what they have and get some extra pieces, then move
Oh,
forward.
yeah. No, Skeleton. I'm sorry. For
Okay,
the
so
Titans.
clean house, build from scratch.
Yeah.
Rams.
Skeleton.
So clean house, start completely over. I'm actually trying to pull up here. Yeah, so clean house, completely start over with the Rams. The next team, the Jags.
Frankenstein.
All right, so take what we have and build onto that. The Ravens.
Frankenstein.
All right, let's take what we have and build onto that. The Giants.
Skeleton.
Clean house, and we're going to build completely from the ground up. The Broncos.
Skeleton.
Clean house and build up from there. And then the final team is the Vikings.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. We're going to take what we have and build up. It's interesting. I think, the only team that I really think that has the ability to kind of build that you said skeleton, I think the Rams, depending, but here I'm going to say with a caveat of his cap isn't the greatest. He doesn't have a whole lot of cap, and he's got some big names that we talked about, like Derrick Henry, Cam Akers, John Johnson. But I think guys like right now, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, even this Evan Cooper who you imported, Isaiah Rodgers is another name that popped up, solid young corner. I think he has the ability, and he's got Deshaun Watson, who's another free agent. he's got the ability to have a pretty good roster. The problem is he's in the division with Meek, Joker, and D Money, and so that's a challenge itself. But I would say, depending on how he is, I think this could go either way. If he wants to and can manage that cap, this could be a Frankenstein, or he could just clean house right now. Trade Aaron Donald or Cup while they have value, eat the penalties or whatever it is, and get some value back, and then in a year or two reap the benefits from that. I think this could go either way. The Jags, I definitely agree with. I like the Frankenstein move there. The Ravens, some cap issues, but I think he manages that. The Giants are an interesting team. Barkley's a big name, but running backs are kind of a dime a dozen. I think he can be game changing, but he's more of a passing guy anyways, so I don't know if that's a big loss. And then he's got the youth of Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton, Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Wandale Robinson. So, he's got the young guys there. I think Barkley maybe is dead cap to him just because he's not a running type of guy anyways. But that's a big name for somebody that could be out there looking for a running back. But yeah, I would agree. Other than that, the Broncos, I think, have a few pieces but I would skeleton this roster down and start over. I think he has some pieces that can be tradable. Justin Simmons or Cortland Sutton type of player, and then even Gregory, Ben Powers, lineman, but the guys that I would keep, a Pat Surtain, Javonte Williams, and then I would move forward with that. So it'll be interesting what he does. But I'm with you on your picks there, and yeah, it's a fun little. That's the quickest topic I think we're ever going to have. But let's move on to the next one. This one is spooky or scary with teams that are in the playoffs.
Spooky.
Right. So, how we're going to do this is, are they a scary team or are they just kind of a spooky team that made it in and not really going to go anywhere? Or are they a scary team? Watch out. They're making some noise. And this is obviously just the playoff team. So I'm going to pull up the playoff picture, and in a rapid fire session, we can.
Hey, we're getting better at the rapid fire.
Yes, we are. We more practice, right? Practice makes perfect. So we're going to start with the AFC since you and I are both in the NFC. Let's start with the AFC. We're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. And I think the AFC is pretty set. I don't think anything's changing for these 7 teams, maybe seedings, but I think everything stays the same. So the Dolphins, spooky or scary?
Scary. I'll try to elaborate just a little bit on each team and not too much, but they got firepower everywhere on offense, and they've got a pretty solid defense. Not just spectacular on shutting down the other opposing offense, but man, they can put up some points, and they got speed to spare at almost every position on the field on offense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they're scary. When Massimo's on his game and he's chucking the ball all around the yard, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, even Devon Achane, these guys are some of the fastest guys in this Madden, and they're all on the same team, and it just makes it for an absolute headache for a defense to play. Granted, he is going to run into some of the guys that are top-minded defensively. Kobe, Cincy, Bill had played pretty well. Denver is with the Bengals. So some of these guys can play defense with some of the best, and so it's going to be interesting. But I think if Massimo gets going, which he has shown previously, come in as a 7th seed and make a run to the OMFL Bowl, he is definitely a scary team. The next team is the 6th seed Buffalo Bills by Bill.
I'm gonna have to go with scary as well. Just the simple fact we already talked about them in the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde segment, and the teams that he'd only lost to was actually kind of kind of eye-opening. Bill definitely has a good team. Now, whether or not he's really scary for everybody else in the playoffs, I just feel like that if it clicks for him and if he gets the right things, he's definitely a scary team to deal with. You definitely want to come with your A game against him, because if not, he's going to beat you.
I agree. I can't, say anything else. This team is a scary team. Bill with the number one defense for points per game allowed, and the fewest in the league at 17.82 points per game, is a nightmare matchup problem. His safety play, Hyde and drawing a blank on the other dude. But
Hyde, Micah Hyde.
yeah, Micah Hyde and then Jordan Poyer. These two guys, you can't. You can't throw over the top of them. They react to everything. He's got Tre'Davious White at corner. He's got Von Miller, and he's got a great defense. So, and obviously, respectfully so, he's got the fewest points allowed in the league in a division where he has to play Kobe twice and Massimo twice, and he still has the fewest points allowed of the entire OMFL. Scary team for sure. Number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals, led by Denver.
Any team led by Denver is scary. The Bengals, though, he's got some weapons. His import running back McGee has been on a tear. I think he's number 2 or 3 in the league right now, rushing touchdowns. And he just plays well with Burrow and then his bevy of receiving targets that he has there. So and he plays good defense, and he's always like on his game. He's a student of the game. He studies each opponent. He knows what they're doing, and so Denver is probably the scariest number 5 playoff team there is in this OMFL.
Yeah, I would agree. This is a scary roster, scary team to come in. Denver's he's actually 6th in the league in passing yards per game. And he still has 22 rushing touchdowns on the season. McGee's getting it done in the backfield, which is why I saw the light that Joe Mixon was available, and I went and got him to help my backfield. But Jamar Chase is having a crazy year with well over 2,000 yards, and Joe Burrow able to make any throw. Plus, the Bengals have a pretty good defense. Wouldn't say elite, but they're good enough to give you problems. And you gotta chase. No pun intended. But you gotta chase to slow him down and not allow Denver to get points on the board. And it's not just Jamar Chase. He's got other guys that can help, and Burrow leading the attack. This is a scary team. Number 4, which is Denver's matchup, the Orlando Condors, formerly the Indianapolis Colts, led by Pancake.
Pancake, aka Bronco Man on the Discord. If we were talking in this segment 6 weeks ago in Mad Weeks, I would have said scary, but right now going in the playoffs, he's limping. He lost to the Texans. I don't know how much the backups in every other position they played during that game, but I got to give him the spooky here, and he's got a little boo to him, but I just don't think he's as far as roster wise right now with injuries and stuff. I just don't think he's there to make a big scary move throughout the playoffs.
Jonathan Taylor scares me. If this guy gets going, he is an animal to stop. But with that being said, I just think that teams have now figured out, know that Jonathan Taylor is the guy. Focus on him, force the rest of the team to make. Pittman's a solid receiver, but ain't a guy that's going to just, run away from a DB or anything like that. And I really don't see a whole lot of other weapons on their receiving end besides Pittman that really scare me. Defense is solid, but I would say both of the three teams that we just listed before this, the Dolphins, Bills, and Bengals, I would rather have those defenses. From a roster standpoint, Bill and Denver both from a management standpoint, whereas Massimo's more offensive minded. I don't think this is a team that I would be scared of. This would be probably the one team that I would want to play in the AFC in the first round, just because I feel like it would probably be I don't want to say easy matchup because Bronco or Pancake has had a great season, but I would want to avoid the rest of the AFC. And so, yeah, this would be the team that if I saw, I'd be like, okay, I got the one matchup that I would feel comfortable going in for the wild card round in the playoffs in the AFC. So this is definitely a spooky team. I think if he adds a few pieces this offseason and is able to maintain Jonathan Taylor, this team is going to have success for years to come, like he did in the portion. As I mentioned earlier in the show, though, his schedule, he won a lot of games that I anticipated he probably would have won, and lost a few games that I was like, yeah, man, those are teams that I expected to probably win those games. So, I mean, he's in the division's a wide open division, and Bronco is a solid user, solid owner, and has really found his way. And I'm interested to see what he does this offseason. But definitely a spooky team for this season 106. The next team we have is the number 3 seed Stocks-led Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm gonna go with the spooky, just because we can't have scary for every team. But he's definitely had a really solid season. He's done more than I think he has ever done in the past in the OMFL, and so kudos to him for really improving and having that team in the thick of things here. The number 3 seed is nothing to uh, uh, be sad about for him anyway. But that uh, the buzzsaw that he's probably going to face here in the playoffs, I don't see any. I mean, when you got the number 6 seed Bills as your first team, and I think they already had a matchup head to head, and I think Bill won that game. So I just see the same thing. I think there's a lot to be excited about in KC, but there's also I can't trust him and give him that scary label because he hasn't scared all the teams yet. Like he's done well and performed like against the certain teams like he should win against, but those big games, those that come down to like he needs to win them, the big game and stuff, I just haven't seen it yet. So he's getting the spooky rating from me.
I depends on, I guess, how I want to look at this. From an offensive standpoint, I feel like he's a very scary team. From a defensive standpoint, I feel like he's a spooky team. For the matchup reasons in the AFC, I'm going to go with spooky, just because I think that offensively, Clinton is a absolute monster of a receiver, kind of like our generation in this Madden league. He reminds me of a Calvin Johnson. Just 6'5" monster, good speed, just physical. I mean, even just an absolute animal. But he's got Kelsey. Got rid of Pacheco, goes and gets Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, right now, if he can manage McCaffrey, Clinton, Kelsey, Mahomes, all this, that's a pretty strong core from an offense. But again, the defensive side is led by Chris Jones, and outside of that, like he's got good pieces on defense, but it's not the Buffalo Bills, it's not the Steelers, it's not the Jets, and so I don't see him, being. I think he could win a first round game, but I don't see him going long term in the playoffs. And you're right, the Chiefs and the Bills did play in Week 14. Bill won that game 38-7. So I'm going to have to tip my hat to Bill because of his defense. If he can score 38 points with that defense, that's a nightmare to match up. So I'm going to say spooky for the Chiefs in season 106. The number 2 seeded Pittsburgh Steelers, led by Cincy Iceberg.
Scary. Very scary. Very, very scary. Words of Elmer Fudd. What can you say about Cincy? I really think he could take like a 60 overall team and probably get them to the OMFL Bowl. He's just that good. He's very meticulous about how he runs his team and I don't know his playbook, and I mean he's really good, and I would be scared to face him. Definitely. He's got all the tools that fits his style of play to win a championship in season 106, and so that alone should make every team scared.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are firing on all cylinders. This offense is such a dynamic offense. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson Jr., Patty French Fries at tight end. Desmond Ritter's playing exceptional. He's got a very strong defense at all levels, from the line to the linebackers to the DBs. And I think this team, out of the box, was probably, out of this whole group, I would say probably the sixth best roster. I would put the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Bengals ahead of the Steelers. And I would say the Steelers and the Colts, which are now known as the Condors, are the bottom 2 teams in the AFC from a roster standpoint. But Cincy is Cincy. He finds a way to take a roster and excel, and he finds a way to do it with moves like Nate was trying to do with Malik Willis. And there's several teams, that are trying to do this with a younger, lower rated quarterback. And he has Desmond Ridder like top 5, I believe, in passing in the OMFL.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it.
I don't know either. And I think that's the recipe, again, what we all try and figure out, but he's doing it. And I wish I had half that talent so I could excel with Justin Fields, because I would have won a few more games and not been on such a meltdown. But, kudos to this man. Does it. He's done it before with the Colts with Desmond Ridder and won an OMFL Bowl. But yeah, scary team for sure. The Jets is the number 1 seed, led by Kobe. He is 15-1.
I would be stupid to say not scary. This guy is I don't know, man. He's a magician. He's really played really well this season. I'm shocked that he actually lost a game. He was just on a tear. He was just really dominant and stuff. And so Kobe has been in an OMFL Bowl. He's won an OMFL Bowl before. He's beat the top tier guys. It's definitely going to be scary for a lot of guys, especially these low tier guys, when they had to face him in that divisional round and a championship round.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think I mean, Kobe has played. Look at Aaron Rodgers' stats. I mean, he's balling out like 40-something touchdowns, like low numbers and interceptions. And defensively, he's got a good defense, like Sauce Gardner and other guys. I mean, Brees Hall, Dalvin Cook, great 1-2 punch. He's got Garrett Wilson. And one guy, Mike Williams from the Chargers. Like, this team is scary for sure. I'm excited to see what he does in the playoffs, because I think that he's got a good team, but he's going to have to be challenged by the Steelers, the Bills, the Bengals, are those three teams, and maybe even the Dolphins because the Dolphins see them. But those 3, 4 teams are going to challenge them, and I'm excited for how this AFC is going to play out. I'm more excited for the divisional and the AFC championship round in the AFC than I am the wild card round, because I'm going to see some of these heavyweights in the divisional and the AFC championship round, I think, as things play out. But the Jets, I mean, like you said, it'd be stupid to say spooky because this is a scary team, a scary owner to go up against. He's, like you said, he's a magician. He finds a way, even without this roster in previous Maddens cycles. I think he had like the Falcons, and it was or something like that. It was a lower rated roster, and he competed. So definitely a scary team. Yeah, I can't agree more on that. Flipping over to the NFC side, we're going to do kind of the same thing, bottom to top. I'll go first, you go second, and then we'll go from there. We're starting, and this is kind of different than the AFC. We're not really set, so I'm going to put 3 teams in as the 7th seed. We're going to talk about the Commanders, Packers, and Niners. I think that 7th seed could change spooky to scary depending on who the team is. I'm going to say if it's the Packers, I'm saying spooky. I just think Priest is not a playoff team right now. He did beat me last night. His defense is great, but his offense is not. And I just don't see him being a team that can even do anything in the playoffs once he runs into some of these elite teams. I think the Commanders and the Niners could push to be a scary team. And I'm going to list them both as spooky as well. I think the Commanders are going to come in if he wins against Dwayne in Week 18. He's won 3 games that we talked about earlier that it's unimaginable to win 3 games like that and then get into the playoffs. But it's also like, here's kind of how I feel it is like he's going to be on the high of like, okay, I finally made it into the playoffs, and then like try and take a deep breath and be like, okay, let's just settle in and play football. And he's not going to play with like that tail on fire type of mentality that he's had, and I think that's maybe why he's had some success against Kobe. And if he beats Dwayne, can't really say the Niners because that was a computer team. Played well on a sim though, but I think if he plays with his tail on a fire, Bird's a different player. And I played him multiple times inside the OMFL and outside. Solid user, solid owner. But I think he's just a few things away. We talk about that quarterback play. Don't know that Sam Howell's there yet. But again, if he plays with this tail on a fire, it's a scary team. But I just think that he's going to take a deep breath. I made it. If he makes it in, and that's going to have kind of him on a letdown. Not to mention his opponent is going to be the Buccaneers and Kevin. And you can't really take a breath there because that team's been playing as elite and as good as anybody. And then flipping to the Niners, which is the last team in that in that 7th seed. I think D Money is D Money. Scary name, scary user, scary anything. But I just don't think he's as locked in and as plugged in as D Money can be. And when D Money's plugged in, like it doesn't matter what team he has, scary. But I just don't feel like he's there. And so I'm gonna say spooky in the 7th seed between the Commanders, the Niners, or the Packers.
Yeah, I'm gonna go spooky as well because I mean you really don't know how it's gonna play out. The Niners could probably be the scary team out of those 3. But then again, Priest he's shown that he can beat some teams at some times, and then he can fall flat on his keister at other times. And Bird is a really solid owner. I've played him several times at a deuce and also in the OMFL. We always have games that seem like it goes like right down to the wire. The person that wins got to kick a field goal or gets some kind of big defensive play to shut the game out, or either one of those guys could be a formidable match for that 7th seed. The Niners, though, would probably be the one I would label as the most consistent scary whenever he's controlling that team. You know, he's been like the best player in the OMFL for many seasons, and but yeah, these guys, they've definitely. I see a trend with all of them though. They all play really solid defense, and so in that essence alone, they're all scary on the defensive side. But the Niners are the ones that are consistent on both sides of the ball. So I'm gonna give them a overall spooky, but a scary rating as well for a defensive side.
Yeah, like I said, I agree there. Jumping into the 6th seed, Detroit Lions, led by Trey. This is such a tough like pick because like my gut, my head tells me scary. I mean, I play this man twice a year, every year for the last I don't know how many seasons going into last cycle even. Trey is one of the top and premium owners from an offensive and defensive standpoint. Um, his team has so much of a nightmare matchups when Jamison Williams, Jamar Gibbs, he's got Sam Laporta, which is a rookie tight end, and like then on the defensive side, he's got Aiden Hutchinson and all these guys like just cause like uh so much frustration when you're playing a team and then you put like Trey's mentality of like how he plays and whatnot, and it just meshes so well. But the thinking about it and trying to be logical, I just think Trey right now, he's got stuff going on, in life. He's got some frustrations that have caused like things inside this season in the last few weeks, trying to make it to the playoffs. And when crunch time's been crunch time, um, Trey hasn't been the normal Trey that I'm well aware of. I expect him to be in the playoffs, but I just think that he's going to run into a Kevin or a Meek, and depending on what seed it is, on how that plays out. And those guys are playing high level ball right now and not making a lot of mistakes. And Trey's got that play style that we all know and those plays. And like if they hit there, then he's like just exceptional, right? But if they
Mm-hmm.
don't hit and he has a few turnovers and then it gets in his own head, then it's like the rope just unravels faster than you can even watch it unravel. So I'm gonna say spooky because of that, because he's got like I feel like he's trying to juggle so many different things right now and not focus just on what his team is good at and what he's good at. And so because of that, I think the Lions are a spooky but scary team. But they're just a spooky team because of the state that the Lions are in right now. He's not he's got like some distractions, he's got other things. And again, Hendon Hooker's had a good year, but does Hendon Hooker pull through in crunch time? And then so that's where I'm at. I'm going to go with spooky. I could be wrong and I could be made a fool, because I would in any given day pick Trey to be a scary team, but for this particular moment in the playoffs and where we are currently, and the little bit that I know and have watched and seen, I'm going with spooky.
Yeah, Trey's um, the odd case here. I think um, he if I was to say spooky, knowing Trey, he's probably gonna be listening to this. Like put some
Oh, for sure.
respect on my name. So
All right.
and I just think that he's been there before. And I definitely think that experience in the playoffs and the OMFL, with him actually getting to a bowl game, winning a bowl game, um, that's going to pay dividends for a 6 seed like him. If we had a spooky cross scary word, it was spookery. that would
Right.
probably that would be Trey, and I think probably in this playoffs as the number 6 seed, he's probably is the scariest number 6 seed. Number
Oh,
6
for
seed
sure.
in the playoffs combined, and because like you said, he thrives on the big play, and if he gets up on you and you can't combat the big play, it's over. I mean, and that's um but those tough games where he's got to like really grind it out. I think that's where you have success at against Trey. And if you're looking at the two teams that he's possibly going to play, like you said, the Bucks and the Seahawks, that's going to be a tough matchup. And I don't think, especially if they get up in the way that they play, I don't think Trey will be able to overcome that. But again,
I think he can
you know,
overcome it. I just think his state of like mind right now, like with it, how the back end of the seasons happen and things like with life and everything. I just think when something negative happens, is it how he responds to it. Normally, I'm like, oh, Trey, he'll be fine. But right now, like I said, just the state of things, like I think that it's just that negative event or that negative play or anything just becomes really big on him and weighing on his mind. And so when that happens, it's like, okay, what how does that play out, right? And so that's where I'm at with like if that is what's going to take place, then we've got a we've got a different animal on our hands right now than the normal Trey.
yeah. I'm just talking about the matchup in general, though. Like the way the Seahawks play and the Bucks play, they're very ball control dominant.
Yep.
And if they get up on top Trey, they do have I think the roster to combat the big play ability that he kind of relies on. So that's kind of the outlook I'm seeing. Um, I definitely think Trey, um, he's definitely a scary team, and so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I'll give him spooky.
Sounds good. On the number 5 seed, we have the Atlanta Falcons, led by yourself, Maniac. There. Um, I mean, I can't pick anything else than scary. This team you played, I just got done playing you last week in week 17. I feel like your defense has just been elite. AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, Shepard. You've got a lot of defensive backs, which in a passing heavy league plays to your favor. Calais Campbell is still a game changer up front. Um, your linebackers are a little bit raw or undervalued, but they're athletic enough that you can put them out in space. And, the one linebacker, I can't remember his name, is pretty young, but he's like got like 90 speed. So, like, you try and run, he's just as athletic to cut you out to the outside and let those DBs and DNs that you do have strong talent. And just the way you play, like you play strong offensively. Bijan Robinson is an elite young running back, and then Kyle Pitts. I mean, that's dude's probably the most athletic tight end there is in the league right now, next to Travis Kelsey. I mean, those two are in a league of their own. Um, and so Pitts being as elite as he is, but also as good as he is, like is a matchup problem itself. And then you got Drake London, where you kind of used some of your incentives, bumped him up to the superstar. So you have to keep an eye on him. Mac Hollins has been playing well. And then you went and got Jalen Tobert. I do believe he's out for the playoffs. But this team is just well rounded. And then again, we talked about this earlier. Parker Colt in the backfield, slinging the ball around to these playmakers. I just feel like this team's a scary team. and with your play style, you've really gotten comfortable and you're playing with confident. You take care of the ball. You create a lot of matchup problems that are already matchup problems themselves, but then you with your play calling, you're forced to kind of pick your poison. And so, you know, the old witch's brew here is, the Falcons are a scary team. And I think that they are a team to watch out. You 12 wins in a division with Kevin, who has played as elite as he has. On top of that, Nate, who we talked about this earlier, as good as he is, plus the NFC where you have the Cowboys, the Lions, the Bears, the Commanders, the Niners, like a bunch of other strong teams, and you've gotten 12 wins. I mean, a 12 win wild card team is pretty crazy. So definitely a scary team in my book.
Yeah, it feels weird to talk about my team, but you're going to have the turn to
You
talk
can
about your
choose
team.
to or not if you want to. You can choose to
But
if you want to.
I will say that my team has played pretty solid, and I'm just I'm thankful because, like I said, last Madden I came back in late into um, the into the seasons. I think it was like the final two seasons that I was a part of, and I endured two back-to-back losing seasons. Both I don't think I won two or three games total with the Vikings, and so just being able to compete and have the opportunity to be in OMFL playoffs is pretty awesome. And you know, talking about um, my wide receivers and stuff, yeah, I've definitely uh, feel like that my team is real well rounded. I don't really have any superstars except for um, Pitts, and definitely he's a tight end, and so it's kind of um, it's one of those things where you try to be um, as sneaky as you can, I guess, with your roster, but everybody knows that Bijan and Pitts are going to be getting the ball, pretty heavily. So that's kind of. But I am thankful that I have Parker Colt because I don't think I could do with Ritter what Cincy has done with Ritter. I may have been able to be solid with Ritter, but I don't think that I could have done what he's done with Ritter, and so Parker Colt, it fits my style, and I'm just hoping I can make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely think you will. Moving on, obviously, we can flip over and talk about my team in the number 4 seed, the Bears. I don't know how I'm the 4 seed still. I don't even know how I'm in the playoffs, actually. But as the epic meltdown that I've had, I mean, as much as I want to say, like, I feel like I'm a solid user and an owner, and I put myself in good positions. The inconsistency, we talked about this a number of times. Um, Quarterback play. And I just have not had a good stretch or runs with Fields, moments where I'm like really happy with what he's done. And then there's moments where I'm just like, dude, like get off my team. Like, but I can't just like let him go. My defense has played well. And that's the one thing I think that has kept me where I'm at in games. But I still have to have some offense that goes with that. And the scary thing is I feel like I always usually have a pretty good defense, and that's kind of my MO is defense wins championships. That's how I am as a coach in real life. That's how I am as a just football fanatic. That defense is the is what wins you games. But in my last 5 games, I'm 1-4. I've lost to the Lions. I've lost to the Browns. Both of those games I got shut out. I lost to the Falcons and I lost to the Packers. I beat the computer-led Cardinals with Joker. That's it. So I mean, I have struggled this last 5 weeks to go into the playoffs, and I've limped in with 2 broken legs, 2 broken arms, and you name it. I don't even know how I was still crawling with that. But here I am in the playoffs. Again, with the Lions losing to the Vikings, computer led team, which just still blows my mind. I'm in the playoffs and I'm gonna go spooky. Because of my trends, I would like to say that I'm a scary, and I would like to view myself as a scary player. And I know that playing confident or not confident could be a big different thing. But again, my confidence level is just not now. Mid-season, week 6 through 13, 12, somewhere around there. But it's 12 because I think my bye week was week 13. I was on a stretch where I played really good football and was really like playing kind of on a high. But since my bye week, it's been nothing but downhill, and we have no wheels, we have no brakes, we have nothing. We're just going and can't stop. And so I'm hoping the playoffs I can revive myself and figure things out. But right now, the way things are going, I'm a spooky team.
Well, you've definitely had a rough go walking into the playoffs, and like you said, it's not walking into the playoffs. You're limping into the playoffs. You know, and but you know, your team overall, I would say, is spooky at this point. But the owner is scary, and the owner is what makes a total difference because you've won a bowl game, and you're always, you know, I don't ever count you out of a game, and you're like one of the top dogs in this league that knows X's and O's quite well, and so your team, yeah, is limping and spooky, but Big Hurt is Mr. Scary, and man, what a way to start the playoffs off for me, playing a Bears team that is controlled by a very spooky owner. I mean, a scary owner, a spooky team with a scary owner. So, um, I, you know, like I said, you've been there before, you've done it. So don't ever, I'm not ever going to take you lightly. And definitely, you're a top notch guy right here.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I would definitely say going into this Madden, I was like, oh, I think my Bears roster is good, but I'm gonna first season, I think I'm gonna have some things to figure out just with the roster. I like what I had to build on, but then the things were playing really well, and yeah, so that's that. Moving on to number 3 seed, the Seattle Sea Chickens, or known as the Seattle Seahawks, led by Meek Boy. I think Meek definitely is a scary team. Meek has a very elite roster. Uh, the Kenneth Walker, um, I'm trying to think. He's got his import quarterback. I can't think of the name of his import quarterback, but
White, I think. White's his
is
name.
it White? White, yeah. So I mean, he's played really well with him. Um, and then he's got the receiving combo, as we all know. Um, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Noah Fant, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. I mean, these guys just match up problems all over the place. And then, like I said, with Kenneth Walker, and then he's got the rookie Zach Charbonnet as well. He's got a really strong core, very young team. And then defensively, um, this team with Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner, and then the cornerback play, like he's got the fastest corners I think anybody in Madden of any team. So he can compete with those teams like probably the one team that can match up with the Dolphins' speed at the receiver because he's got Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen. I think are both over 95 speed. So he can match up pretty well there. And so those bigger physical corners, but with speed, I think are something that is really going to play well for Meek. Plus, Meek's just a strong owner. I've played him several times and in here and in other league. And he's just playing good football. And so I think he's definitely given D Money some run for D Money's money. But here is the caveat that I want to say is I don't think D Money is 100% locked in, and I would love to see both of these guys for one season battle it out from week 1 to week 18, 100% locked in, because I think it would be a fun little battle to watch. But I'm going to go with a scary team. The Seahawks have a team that can make a run and could give some teams a run for their money, and I could see them. I don't think they're going to make it to the OMFL Bowl, but I wouldn't be ultimately like shocked if he won a couple and made a run, because I think he has what it takes, but not my pick to win the NFC.
Yeah, the Seahawks team is very scary. He's probably the weakest thing about his team is his offensive line, and he seems like he's actually done quite well with them all season long. So Meek Boy has, which I'm always kind of teasing him a little bit in every show, because the one game that he played versus D Money and he beat him, and at the end he was like, "Put some respect on my name," and so I think he's earned some respect, but also in the process you kind of get a bullseye, especially when you take down D Money like that, and people start, maybe if you were flying underneath the radar, definitely not flying underneath the radar anymore, and so um and but he's definitely a scary team. Um, it depends on what happens in the playoffs. It's just like the NFL. Any given Sunday, something weird could happen. We saw a few playoffs in the past where some crazy things happened and guys got to the OMFL Bowl that we just didn't even think should get there. But yeah, his DBs are probably like one of the best group of DBs in the NFC, and he's gonna make waves. I actually, my friend Tony Bono picked him to go into the NFC Championship game, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about what's going to happen here.
Nice. All right, number 2 seed, Kevin with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have Kevin as a scary team. Kevin's been playing lights out. He is on an elite level, rider, strong quarterback, import quarterback from Madden 23, strong receiving core. Fournette's been playing out of his mind. He's got a good defense. And so I think this is a scary team. I would like to say that Kevin has probably a very good chance of winning his first round game, but I think that that's where it ends, because I just don't see him, depending on how things match up. I just said that I don't see Meek winning winning the NFC. I think if things play out the way that I envision, Kevin and Meek both play each other in the second round in the divisional round, and I think Meek's gonna win that game. I think it's gonna be a bloodbath, like fight to the end. Both teams are playing elite, but I think Meek's maybe just one step ahead of him. But again, I'm not going to take anything away from Kevin. I think he's got the ability to definitely win that game. But I think the guy that we're all looking forward, that I'm looking to see run the table in the NFC is the number 1 seed, which we'll talk about here shortly. So, but Kevin, scary team. I can't take anything away. He's got a great roster, great owner, great play caller. I played him back, I think, week 2 or week 3, and it was like very high scoring, but I couldn't stop his receivers. His passing game was on point.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's scary. Like we talked about in the other segment, where his pickup of Fournette back in the backfield, he's been lights out with him, and then Godwin has just been almost uncoverable. I mean, he's always seems to get open, and a lot of it too. I think Kevin's scheme. He schemes to get Godwin in positions to get open, And because I've seen a lot of times where Godwin's playing slot or inside tight, and if you're not careful, a lot of times he'll be lined up on a linebacker, and so again, like his scheme, he schemes around things to uh, get his players in the best position to make plays. And his roster, he's got a really good defense, and of course, being in the South, I get to play him twice a season. And the first matchup we had was pretty close, and but he has this feeling of his team like at any moment could just completely go on a tear and dominate you to the point where you don't have a chance.
Yep.
And but if things fall for him right, and he gets the matchups, he very well could make a bowl game. And but I definitely see that he will make it out of the first round of the playoffs, and at least into the second round. Possibly he could possibly make it to the championship game as well. So he's definitely a scary team to deal with here in these playoffs in season 106.
And at last, the top team in the NFC, the number 1 seed, Dwayne-led Dallas Cowboys. I mean, scary, 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 scary,
Mm-hmm.
scary, scary. Can I say it anymore? This dude is Mr.
Scary
Consistent. He's
Infinity.
always, yep, he is always here. He is always in the top. He's always in the playoffs. He just, does what he does. And then we've talked about this from previous shows. He runs the ball. He runs the ball. And when you think he's done running, he runs the ball. And he plays good defense. And then he, throw for maybe 100, 150 yards and just be efficient. He did lose to Trey at the end of the season, but it was like a few turnovers and just kick returns saved him in that game. But I think Dwayne kind of, a little bit like what I said with Bird might do if he made the playoffs, take that deep breath. I think Dwayne kind of took a deep breath, like, okay, I'm the 1 seed, I'm in the playoffs. And all of a sudden, boom, he hit, what was it? The Lions, and I can't think of the other one, the Massimo and the Dolphins. And so both of these guys are playoff teams and guys that can make runs to the OMFL Bowl and have won OMFL Bowl or competed in the OMFL Bowl. So not like bad losses, but I think he just needs to refocus and relock in. And I think the playoffs, he's going to do just that. And the way he plays, running the ball and defense, is a recipe for success. And Dwayne has got that recipe mastered because he does it year in and year out. So scary team for sure.
Yeah, like I said, scary infinity. There is no more consistent team in the OMFL than Dwayne uh, uh, run Cowboys, and they fit his style perfectly. We've seen him win with the Falcons, the Colts. They were similar to that style, but he always had to build them into his style, and then he would dominate. The Cowboys kind of like the last couple of seasons or a couple Maddens when they come out of the box, they are ready to go for Dwayne with his style. And I've nicknamed him several years ago, and I don't know if it's actually stuck with anybody besides myself, but I call him the Dakota Nightmare because he just has his way with you a lot of times. You can come in and you think you got a game plan, and he will just absolutely kick you in the teeth, and then just kind of smile about it and go on about his day and just keep doing his thing. And I just, he's what can you say? I mean, you could say all kinds of stuff about him, but he is a tough competitor. And if you're going into a game with him, you better put your big girl panties on because they are going to get in trouble. I'm telling you. So just got to be prepared to play your top game when you come into the ring with Dwayne, Mr. Dakota Nightmare.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our show here for episode number 2. And our theme of the Halloween season with some Halloween topics. It was a fun little show. We talked about a lot, covered a lot. Went a little
So
too much longer than I wanted to, but I think we tend to do that when we get on and enjoy talking and getting into all the OMFL topics. But I've got to get ready for a little trunk or treat with my kids tonight at my wife's work. So I am going to wrap this show up, man. Excited for the playoffs. I'm excited to see what season 106 playoffs bring, and then get into the off season, which is always a fun time, draft, and then get ready to do it all over again for season 107.
yep, been a good one.
Hey, have a good one, and until next time, have a safe holiday and enjoy the playoffs, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Peace.